Hi traders, I'm Luke from Discipline Trader and welcome to the How to Backtest series. This is a new mini-series of videos I'm going to be doing on the channel that will go through my process when backtesting a new idea. The first part of this process is collating your thoughts to determine what it is exactly you want to test. Your ideas could come from a number of places, including previous backtest, live trading, or even something you have seen another trader do and want to learn more about. If you have a variety of different ideas, you could try and condense them all into one backtest, or you may feel that it would be beneficial to split your ideas into 2 or 3 different tests. This way you can see how they work in isolation of each other before deciding how to continue with them. As a running example through this series, I want to backtest an idea myself, which should give you all a good insight into how I start from a small idea or hypothesis and go all the way through to deciding if and how to include this idea in my trading strategy. Any of you that follow the channel already may have seen that I want to look at ways that I can run my trades for a bigger profit. I have felt for a while that my overall analysis method lends itself to longer targets, as it maps potential market movement that could span over a day or two. My current approach only takes advantage of short-term moves, which typically only take a couple of hours to play out, if that. So once you have decided what you want to test, the next step is deciding how you are actually going to do that. A method I like to use is to think of questions the idea invites and use these to guide the test. Let's open a spreadsheet to do this. Okay, so what I want to do is test different methods of allowing my trades to run to these extended levels, sort of past where my current strategy does. So the questions that I would have for this would look something like, will you target an extended level on every trade or only in certain circumstances? So is this extended level that you've got in your head going to be valid on every trade or only in certain circumstances? And I guess that would lead on to, well, if it's only certain circumstances, what are those circumstances? Or how are you going to decide where this extended level is? Is it going to be a predefined level, for example? Or are you going to use some kind of trailing stop loss method? That might be something like a moving average that you use that follows price, obviously, because they do, and when that moving average is tested or broken, you come out. Or is it going to be, say, a particular price pattern? If you see a price pattern take place at any point during that move, okay, that's where I come out. There are various things that you could do there. Will you target these extended levels only, or will you have staggered targets whereby you take profit off the table as price reaches these certain levels? So this could be like, my current strategy at the moment would have a target around somewhere probably between 1 and 1.5 to 1. You'd probably say keep that target and then maybe have a target beyond that and then another target beyond that, and then you can take advantage of these extended levels because you've hit the first one, potentially hit the second one, potentially hit the third one, or however many targets you want. If you have staggered targets, will you close equal portions of the trade at each different level, or will one target level be weighted more than others? So for example, in that one we said there, say your first target's at 1.5 to 1 risk to reward, the next one's say at 2, and then the next one's at 3 to 1. You might take 50% off at that first target, and then 25%, and then 25%. Or you could take a third off at your first target, a third off at your second, a third off at your third. There are various ways of doing it, and you just want to know the most optimal way. And will there be any situations whereby it will be favourable to move your stop loss once price has reached a certain point? Now, because I currently trade where I set a stop loss and then I have a take profit level, it hits one or the other. But if I'm going to have these extended targets, if I get to the first target, for example, does my stop loss method now change? Because does that stop loss go to another point? Does it go to break even? Does it turn into a trailing stop for these last 2 targets, or does it just stay where it is? I need to know what the most optimal thing to do in that situation would be. And you just go on in this fashion. You want to just brainstorm the sort of seed idea that you have. So obviously in this case it's to allow my trades to run for bigger profit targets, but that is just one one little idea, and around this idea will be all these questions that you need to know. And sometimes, particularly if you're newish to trading, it can be quite difficult to know what questions to have. So let me give you an example. If you haven't done much trading and you have an idea that you want to test, you might be thinking, well, I don't really, I'm not really sure. In that case, what I would do is jump onto a demo account. I would take some trades around this new idea that you have and see what sort of situations you run into, because I guarantee there'll be points when you go live with an idea where you're like, well, what do I do now? I actually never thought about this situation arising and I don't know what to do. I don't know where to put my stop. I don't know where to put the take profit level. Price has done this. I never thought about this before. And that's where those questions come from. I've been trading for years now and have had that sensation lots of times. So that stands me in good stead for doing tests like these, because more often than not, I'm going to know the majority of the questions that I'll run into using this idea. Now, that's not to say that I'll get them all, and that doesn't matter. I've said a million times that I'm always doing these little tests, and more often than not, it's just something I've run into once or twice where I've not really known what the answer was, and thought, actually, I'm just going to spend, an hour or two. That could be, an hour or two per week, just trying to find out the answer to that. So when that next crops up, I know what to do. I'm not dawdling and panicking. But yeah, once you've got your questions, then you can start to work towards your answers. So your answers are going to be sort of your framework for your backtest, if you like. So will you target an extended level on every trade or only in certain circumstances? Well, to answer this question, I need to test an extended level on every trade. And I need to record characteristics of each trade that I think are important to whether to target an extended level or not. Then when I come to do the analysis, I can say overall profitability of targeting extended levels is X. Only targeting extended levels under these circumstances, and then decide what those circumstances are. That yields a profit of Y. Only targeting extended levels under some different circumstances, that yields a profit of Z, and then whichever is the most profitable out of those, the different permutations of the things that you do, there's your answer. So that's how I would go about working that one out. How are you going to decide where the extended level is? Again, when I come to do the backtest, what I will probably do is have a variety of different methods of identifying target levels, and I will just see which is the most successful. Which is the most successful and which yields the most profit, obviously. And that will answer that question for me. Are you going to use predefined levels, or are you going to use a trailing stop? Well, this is what I was sort of talking about with the crossover. Am I going to use a predefined level? These two will answer everything I need to know about predefined levels. Trailing stop method is something that I haven't come across yet in these previous two questions, so I need to test a trailing stop method as well. And that might be a couple of them. Excuse me. There may be, like I've said before, a moving average stop loss method, or if a particular price pattern forms, then maybe that will be the sort of trailing stop loss method. So if price puts in, say I'm short, price is moving down, it retraces a little bit, moves back down to the low, bang. Now my stop's trailed down, it's above that little high that it put in. And if it comes back up, I'm out. If it carries on falling, then great. Puts in on a little high, bang, down comes my stop. They will be the sort of things that I test. Then again, at the end, I will just see which is worked the best, which has yielded the most profit. There's my answer. Will you target these extended levels only, or will you have staggered targets whereby you take profit off the table as price reaches certain levels? Again, that's just going to be testing these staggered targets. And at the end, I will see if just targeting the extended levels or actually taking profit off at these staggered levels works out better. If I have staggered targets, will the proportions be this equal across them? Again, that ties in with the previous question. Not only do I want to know if the extended level is better, I would like to know if any of these levels are better. For example, say, let's go back to the example with three extended targets. You've got the initial target, second target, third target. It might work out that for every time that the first target is hit, 90% of the time of those trades, the second target is hit. Well, in that case, it may be worth weighting my second target higher, whereby I take 25% off at the first target, 50% off at the second, and another 25% on the third target, so that I'm making the most profit I can from my approach. But again, just asking those questions and recording that data will answer those questions for me. Will there be any situations where it would be favourable to move your stop loss once price has reached a certain point? Now, this would, like I've said, this would be new ground to me. So all I would be doing is recording the result of the trade if I was to use a stop loss method like this. So I will record once it gets to first target and second target, moving my stop to, say, an obvious point or a break-even point, and just seeing what that would do to the result of the trade. And recording that, and then again at the end of the test, collating this data to see, well, which approach works best, which approach gives me the most profit, and I can go from there. And it's worth saying, and I've said this many times, when you're doing a test like this, it's easy to see where the psychological problems may come into play. If, for example, running all my trades to this extended level is going to yield me the most profit, but in actual fact, running it only to the first two targets yields me almost as much profit, and it has a higher success rate, then maybe that's the one I should go with if I have a problem with losing trades, because I'm going to have more successful trades using that method. Okay, I'll have a little bit less profit, but if you take into account the psychological factor, if you can implement that strategy that targets that extended level, then are you going to have more profit using that? Because you're probably going to chew up your own results through poor management of trades and emotional decisions. So take that into account when you're doing your test. It's easy to just look at cold hard numbers and think, this is what I must do. Think about how difficult that may be to do in practice, and how you could make that easier on yourself without giving away too much profit. It's definitely doable. I've seen it a million times, so it's definitely worth thinking about as you go through. But they're the sort of questions and answers that I would come up with to start my backtest. When I've got these, I will start to put together a big table whereby I get ready to record all the data that I want in order to answer these questions. And I think what I'll do is I will cover that in the next video. So what I'll do is I'll list everything that I want to answer. So we've got it, and then I'll show you how I move those answers into a table and get ready to do that data collection. And then what we'll do is we'll do a video whereby I run through and collect this data. I'll show you, me filling in the table, things like that, and talk you through what I do and what I'm thinking there. I'll do another video whereby I show you how to analyze the results that you get from the tables, and then I'll probably do a video just discussing the results of the test. So it'll probably be like a 4-part thing. And yeah, hopefully this will stand you in good stead for doing this yourself. I'm not saying this is the only way to backtest. It's definitely not. It's just a way I like to backtest. Like I said, I've been doing it for years now, and yeah, I've pretty much got it nailed down to how I like to do it, how I like to iron out the kinks of things that I find, and this works really well for me. So hopefully, you find some value in it too. But yeah, so I'll end that one there, and I'll see you in part 2 for the structuring of the test.